As I reflect on the past decade of my life, I see that there is only one skill that helped me to reach what most people in my age couldn't reach. And I mean, I have a 800 plus thousand subscribers YouTube channel, I have a media company, I have a coaching business, and I wouldn't say I am a smart person or I am a hard worker. It all comes down to this one skill. To be honest, it is the self-control. I have somehow established a decent state of self-control to control my thoughts, my emotions, and my behavior. And away from the clinical understanding to what self-control means, I see it practically as the ability to do whatever I have to do whether I want or not. It's that simple. So from my experience, the self-control is this one skill that will set you apart from most of the population. With that being said, in this video, I will share the way I understood the self-control, again, not clinically, but practically, but also we are going to visit the behavioral psychology because I have understood it in this way. Just think about it for a moment, like how to establish the state of self-control. Where should I focus? When we ask these questions, we have to come up at the end of it with a to-do list form of execution, like what should I do today to increase my state of self-control, especially when I'm not in control, when I'm lacking the self-control, how to establish it. I think this video is going to help you with just that. And let's face it for a moment, the lack of self-control is actually the cause of most of our problems, if not all of them. Just think about it. In the productivity sphere, we have this big virus, which is procrastination. Like, what is procrastination? Procrastination is not resisting the temptation of a notification or a stimulus that is seducing, the instant pleasure. So if you think about the first principle, the most simple way to put the problem of procrastination, it is a severe lack of self-control. So back in the day, especially when I was like 25 years old, I was in severe depression. That's how I discovered the self-control. I wasn't just depressed for the sake of being depressed. I experienced a shocking event. I have lost something that I was working for like 10 years. You could watch it from the series that I'm doing. That was the point where I started to look for a way to live again, because when you are depressed, like you can't feel doing anything, let alone from pursuing goals. Like, what does that even mean at this point for the person? So when I was thinking like, what should I do to fix my problem? I started reading. In psychology, which is the study of the mind and behavior, there is a branch called the cognitive behavioral therapy, the CBT. And in the 1960s, Aaron Beck, the founder of this therapy, has discovered something called the cognitive triangle. This cognitive triangle has the answer on where should I focus to create the state of self-control. And it suggests the following. My thoughts influence my emotions, and my emotions influence my behavior. And these three elements are the core factors in shaping my decisions, my behaviors in this world. So, in other words, if I want to control myself, I have to build stations of control over each one of these elements. And to build a further understanding, because we will need that along in this video, thoughts are the most important thing in this whole triangle. Many people think and tend to neglect thoughts and emotions and focus only on the behavioral side, on habits. And here is an example to show you that this can get very problematic in no time. If I want to exercise, I can sign up for a gym. I can buy this outfit. I can set a schedule and I can make a plan and everything is set to go. I start in the first week and everything looks normal. In the second week, the third week, I start losing my internal motivation, struggling to do it. At some point, what most people do actually, they drop it out and they forget about it. What people don't think about in this situation, that they have neglected the emotional and the mental aspect of the process and they focused only on the habit, the physical side. They went to the gym and they thought that the behavior is everything. There are some negative thoughts and doubts like, you can't do it, you shouldn't do it, you don't have to do it today. These internal voices that you keep hearing, if you don't know how to deal with them, you're gonna lose the battle. And the same goes for your emotions. And I mean by feeling someday you will wake up, you just don't feel like doing it today. So neglecting the emotional and the mental aspect of any process is the key to fail. Let's pause for a moment. If you want to establish a state of self-control, to increase your state of self-control, I have a full hour masterclass where I go through the whole process and I share with you the whole system so you can implement it on your life. It's for free. You can reach it from the first link in the description below. And after I realized that, after I built this basic understanding to the thoughts and emotions and behavior, I thought, okay, it was for me like discovering fire. And I focused only on that. To be honest, I didn't read like self-help books and self-improvement books. I wanted to focus on one main problem. Like Elon Musk says, if you want to get to the bottom of things, if you really want to find the truth of something, try to boil things down to their fundamental truth and then reason up from there. Breaking things down to their first principles make things easier for you to understand anything in this world. And I thought that the lack of self-control is the cause of my problems, and I have to establish a decent state of self-control. This was like breakthrough for me. Now, I will tell you how I understand each part of this process, like how to control my thoughts, how to control my emotions, and how to control my behavior. So let's start with the thoughts. Thoughts can be described in so many ways, but to get to the bottom of the matter, like how to control my thoughts, you have to focus on one place, which is your self-talk. And as Aaron Beck describes it, it's an inner dialogue. It's a constant conversation that happens within you. There is an entity that you keep talking to, like who you are talking to. You're talking to yourself. You should also keep in mind that you're dealing here with the source of your negative thoughts, self-doubts, hesitations. So the way you talk to yourself will determine the outcome of everything. There is one thing that you have to focus on to create a solid understanding, and then after that, a solid management to this conversation, which is the expressive conversation versus the transactional conversation. If your self-talk was expressive, let me give you an example now. If you run into a problem and you got back home and you start discussing with yourself like, what should I have done? And you start running into different scenarios. What should I have said? I said that wrong. And you keep analyzing everything that you have done. This expressive self-talk is destructive. It's very destructive because one, that can be categorized as overthinking. You're thinking about something that you can't change the outcome of it. You're just wasting your time. That's one. And two, there's something important that you have to know about thoughts, that whatever idea you interact with, it will get bigger. For example, if you have a startup idea, after 2 years, if you interacted enough with it, it will become a business. But if it was a negative idea, it will not become a business. It will become a chaotic mental illness inside of your head. Whatever you interact with will get bigger, especially in your mind. If you keep talking about things with yourself, you will not end up in a good place. And that's the expressive self-talk. It's destructive. Now let's talk about the constructive, which is the transactional self-talk. The transactional self-talk is a very short self-conversations that are transactional, directional, and goal-oriented. Like, I got an idea of exercising. Okay, what should I do? Okay. As you can see, it's action-oriented. I wanted to do something and I calculated in my head, I want to do X. Can I do it? Yes. Then do it. I can't do it. Why? Okay. Then when? So it's like you're not leaving it open with yourself, because when you do that, it will turn into an expressive, and the expressive self-talk tend to become very destructive in no time. So in a nutshell, to control your thoughts, you have to control your self-talk. And to control your self-talk, it have to be more transactional rather than expressive. I will dedicate a whole episode talking about transactional versus the expressive self-talk so you can build a further understanding to this topic. Now, establishing the state of self-control is the result of controlling thoughts and emotions and behavior. And now we will get into emotions. And emotions are simple to understand, especially that we're talking about facts. So understanding them is not that hard, but the implementation could be hard. And emotions is exactly that. It's easy and simple to understand, but when it comes to implementation, you have to trust the process at some point, which is the hardest part because we're dealing with emotions. Doing something while you're not feeling to do it is one of the most challenging things that humans have to face. There are 3 facts that built up my understanding to emotions. The first one is emotions are the reflection of your thoughts. Your emotions are the reflection of your thoughts. As an example to that, let's say you are hiking and a wolf came out of nowhere. And when you looked at it, you felt that it's not going anywhere good. It looks like this wolf is hungry. So your initial response is going to be to feel the fear, and your adrenaline will rise up like very high up. and you will act upon the situation. You will do the thing that you have to do. I don't know. Maybe you will fight. We usually as humans have this defense mechanism, and we fight most of the time in these situations. So we do things that we don't tend to do otherwise, but it's because a life and death situation. So after hearing this example, you can see that you feel what you perceive. So that's one. Emotions are the reflection of your thoughts. Once I realized that fact, I thought, okay, so if I have a transactional self-talk, that would be much easier to my emotions, since my emotions are the reflection of my thoughts. So that's something that you have to keep in mind. Fact number 2, emotions can be changed, improved, enhanced. However, you have to go through the void phase. And I mean by the void phase is sometimes you won't feel what you want to feel. You just have to trust the process, because it's the transactional phase from feeling nothing to generate the feeling. And as an example to that, in my mid-20s, I was depressed, and the transactional phase, I had to learn a lot of things, and I started testing things out. It was a void phase back then because I didn't feel anything, but I knew what is the solution. So I had to trust the process. And it took me around like 5 to 7 months to really start feeling that when I wake up in the morning, I really get engaged in my thoughts that are linked to the things that I want to do today, which have started creating a momentum that never stopped until now. And the third fact is going to create the whole understanding for you, as it did for me, because I have to trust the process, and my emotions are the reflection of my thoughts, but how to really influence my emotions? Your overall emotional state is determined by your interaction with pain and pleasure, but how exactly? If you have a high tolerance to the temporary pain and you have a high resistance of the instant pleasure, you're most likely somebody who accomplishes a lot of things. But if you have a high tolerance to the instant pleasure and you have a high resistance of the temporary pain, you're procrastinating a lot, you're feeling much bad feelings that you don't know why you're feeling, like you're feeling depressed, things that you used to enjoy are not enjoyable anymore, and the list goes on. So your long-term emotional state is determined by your interaction with pain and pleasure. And here's an interesting part that most people don't actually know about. If you have control over your thoughts and your emotions, changing and influencing your behavior becomes a byproduct of that. So instead of focusing on changing your habits or reading about habits or finding routines and trying to stick to them, if you focus on establishing a transactional self-talk and to establish the emotional control, changing this behavior will become a byproduct of that. But also, there are some when we talk about behavior, we're talking about execution, we're talking about the day that we are living. We kind of forced to talk about productivity. And productivity have some imperatives, like there are laws that we can't argue about. They bring us results if we done them. But what are those productivity imperatives? From my experience, I have found that there are 2 categories of productivity imperatives. And one of them are routines, and I call them the standards, which are the standard activities that have to exist in your day to become productive or to be considered productive. And I call the second category the points of order, which are organizational, directional points that make sure that you are on the right track. One of them, for example, to prepare your to-do list from the night before. Because if I prepared my to-do list from the night before, I will just wake up and follow a to-do list. I don't have to think about it. Like now, I just woke up. It's around 6:45. I just follow. So it's following something rather than thinking about what should I do. But I want to focus now only on the standards, and I will dedicate a whole video to changing the behavior, and we will break them down one by one. But here are the standards activities. Like these are things that have to exist in your day to be considered as productive. To have a healthy sleep schedule, a session of meditation, a session of intensity, like daily sport, consistent learning, which is learning about your goal, and lastly, the daily execution on your personal goal, which is obvious. So after this journey, I concluded that the self-control is what I have to work on establishing, even if it will take me a lot of time. And it didn't actually take that much time. And especially now, I have a system that I can share with you. So you can learn from my mistakes and skip that time of trials and errors and unnecessary suffering. You don't have to deal with that alone. So if you want, you can watch my 1 hour masterclass where I talk about how you can establish your state of self-control, and I share with you the whole system so you can implement it on your personal life. It's in the first link in the description below. And don't forget to watch my ongoing series. My life is a game. It's seducing. You can't resist that. Long live heroes. Brace yourself. Game on.